What's happening, fellas? Yesterday, a friend of mine and I were having a little debate about the history of which 500s have won more championships. So I did a little research. Actually, my friend Max Hine from 999 Laser had posted some info on it and about the CR500's unparalleled legacy of success. In fact, Honda's won over 50% of the AMA national championships in the 500cc class, starting in '77 on the RC 500 with Marty Smith. 1980 was Chuck Sun. 82 was Daryl Schultz. And 84 and 85 was David Bailey, and also 86 David Bailey. The 77 to 82 bikes were full factory works bikes, as were the 84 and 85. I think the production rule came in around 86, and they had to run a production factory frame and subframe, and some other components had to be factory. They couldn't be full works items like the original works, like the RC bikes were. So they were based off of the production bikes. 86 David Bailey won. 87 and 88 Ricky Johnson won, and in 91 Jean-Michel Bayle won. So that's on AMA. They won 50% plus of the national championships and countless local motocross championships, regional championships. Now on the world front, on the world titles, they won 9 consecutive world titles. In '79, they won. Graham Noyce won. 80, Andre Malherbe. 81, and Andre Malherbe. 84, Andre Malherbe. 85, David Thorpe. And 86, David Thorpe won. In fact, in '86, this was a dominant year for Honda, where all three, first, second, and third place on the podium, were all Honda. In '87, it was George Jobet. '88 was Eric Gobers. And in '89, again, two of my favorite years, the '86 and the '89. My son Kenny Jr. races at '89. David Thorpe won first, second, and third on the podium, all Honda, and David Thorpe won the championship. So '86 and '89, all three podium positions. 1990, Eric Gabors, and they ended a 9-year consecutive win streak, dominated. It's unparalleled in motorcycle racing history, to my knowledge, in the 500 class. Certainly, George Jobet won in '91. 9 consecutive world titles. And in '94, Marcus Hansen won, and that was after Honda had bailed on the development of the CR500 when AMA axed the class in 1993 for a bunch of reasons we'll get into later. Now here, almost 30 years later, Neville Bradshaw wins rounds of the 2020 Amateur Championship Series and was on the podium multiple times over in the UK. So that video, just to give you an idea how popular these bikes still are, has 17 million views of him racing and winning a race on his CR500. The most viewed CR500 video in the history of CR500 videos. And number 4 happens to be Kenny Jr. at Southwick last year. My son Jr. got second place at an NESC championship race that got 4.5 million views. So they are super popular. People still love the two strokes. Ironically, Honda is, if you dig deep, and we'll get into that later, Honda is at the forefront of why the 500cc two-stroke class was axed and why two-strokes are no longer allowed in the AMA Pro competition. There's a bunch of reasons for that. One of them is Sakura Honda, the owner of Honda, didn't want to build two-strokes. In fact, he was quoted back in the '60s as saying, "We will never build a two-stroke." Well, then he got his ass kicked in the '67 Japan National Championships, and they came out and built a race bike, a two-stroke race bike, which was further released in '73 as the production Honda CR250, which changed the face of motocross as we know it. And of course, the CR125, which sold more CR125s were sold than any other motocross bike ever made, and that changed the face of motocross and started a wave of motocross, the golden years of motocross, if you will. There's a huge aftermarket support for the Honda CR500, not as much for the KX or the other brands like Mako, Husky, KTM, ATK. Those are harder to get parts for sure. In fact, this whole industry is like Built500.com, AJ Wagner. They're making the engine cases, the cranks, the shifter forks, and you've got MSV that does the exhaust ports and the water impellers and the ignitions, and you've got Adam Millard doing development on the porting and further race development of those engines, dyno-proven race results. And why not the KX500? You know, I love all motorcycles. You probably already know that if you watch our channel. And For me, the CR has better handling. It has better certainly for motocross. Maybe the KX is better in desert racing, and it has one more desert racing. I haven't checked the statistics, but I'm pretty sure the KX dominated in off-road racing, and for that, it's a better long distance bike probably. The ergonomics for the CR are more modern. Even on the 89 and up is more like a modern bike than the KX is for me. The quality of the Honda is second to none. The reliability, the fit and finish, the style of the Honda is unmistakably badass. Plus red, white, and blue. Hey, that works for Captain America, right? I think it's a better suited for motocross bike, and the aftermarket support, like I said, is much better for parts availability and continuity with guys like AJ Wagner building all the components, shift forks, and he's even doing gears now. So then you have guys like Liger, and Panthera that are doing big bore cylinders. So, and I'm not going to mention his name, but one of the most highly respected engine builders in the big bore two-stroke community told me, and I quote, "You don't want to have any KX500 projects," and I've got a bunch of them, by the way. Junior likes 500s. KXs, I like them too. I'm just saying I prefer the CR for motocross. He said the reason why is the KX has a good porting layout and good crank, but everything else was just, and I quote, "scabbed on until it ran." Nothing fits like you think it should. Different fasteners and wrench sizes, and there's a bunch of weirdness. To stay out of the Kawasaki stuff if you can. He said there's frail shift forks, which I've had confirmed by other mechanics, and the clips on the transmission can flip out of the groove and be a problem. Then you got to take the whole engine apart to fix it. The Kip's valve exhaust, which runs off a governor, is noisy and it makes noises. I don't like. This is a quote from the engine builder, not me. The Kip's exhaust valve will be noisy, and if it's not noisy, like it's rattling apart, that means it's not clean. So it's supposed to make that noise. And I don't like engine noises, not when I'm about to huck a big jump or try to nail a hole shot with 40 guys behind me. So the bolt holes are kind of weird, and they have a lot of mismatched hardware. That's from one engine builder that builds my motor. So the Wizard said, and I quote, "You can go to a junkyard and get a Honda transmission, and everything will still be good. It's all good, but the Kawasaki engines are in there because the transmissions aren't good and they're too expensive to fix. So, or you can't get the parts. So, it's been confirmed by several mechanics why. I believe the resale. I know the resale is better on the Honda CRs. I've seen pristine, brand new Honda CRs in the crate get bid up to $30,000. In fact, I bid $30,000 on one still in a crate, and it didn't meet the reserve. And I've seen pristine Honda CRs bid in up to $23,500. So you just don't see KXs bringing that kind of money. I think around $15,000 is about the top off, and it's because of the reasons I mentioned. It's common knowledge. It is what it is. And if you love a KX more than the CR, I don't want to argue about it. That's great. Junior loved the KXs more than the CRs until he started doing motocross again last year. And on the track, he liked the CR better, and there's more aftermarket support for it, so he switched to the CR. So we're both riding. He's riding an 89 and a 97. There's not a lot of vintage bikes that you can take basically stock like my 97 and go out and compete at the amateur level. You don't need to spend a whole bunch of money on motor work. My motor's bone stock, and I nailed a big fat hole shot last weekend against a field of new 450s on a gnarly sand track that I got tired and because I came off the couch and my only cardio was running into the fridge, and I ended up finishing second place. But hey, that's pretty good for a 1997 bone stock motor that I haven't even changed a spark plug in like 2 years on it. Just cleaned the air filter and the oil and ride it. It's got an FMF pipe and silencer and a Boyce and Reed valve, and it's stock, and it's more power than a mere mortal can use. In fact, I've often said the CR500 is easier to ride when it becomes the clutch is worn out, so it slips a little bit, so it hooks up a little better, and that was evidenced by Billy Blythe. We had a bunch of 500s, and he was riding a 480 with a slipping clutch, and we were doing drag races on a slippery surface, and he beat us. He won the drag race because that was on our best day ever video. That's on our channel. Google Kaplan Cycles best day ever. It'll come up. He got a whole shot on a slipping clutch 450. He said it hooked up, and I remember back in the day when my clutch slipped on certain tracks, I could ride better. I'm not recommending riding with a slipping clutch. In fact, AJ Wagner developed, Adam Millar Race Engineering developed a non-slipper clutch with Recluse that is proven to put 20% more torque to the rear wheel. And I'm putting one of those clutches in my bike now. So most of the time we want the extra horsepower to the ground. But for mere mortals, a 500, whether it's a KX or a CR or a Mako 490, A lot of people say the 81 Mako 490 was the best big bore motor ever made because it was easy to ride. But we'll talk about that in another video. We'll also talk a little bit about who killed the 500 class and what happened to it. And you'll be surprised to hear the answer of that. We'll talk a little bit about the history of motocross and my 40 plus years involvement with it. Thank you for watching. And as always, God bless America. Leave in the comments your opinion, why you like the KX or the CR better, or your experience with the CR. I've gone a full season as a privateer that couldn't rub two nickels together, going to the racetrack with no brakes on my truck, literally using the emergency brake to stop, on a CR500 that never let me down. And I went from a mid-pack rider on a Husqvarna mid-pack to winning 9 out of 11 races. I was the same guy, but that 86 CR500 put me at the front of the pack and has kept me there for a long time. Every time I swing a leg on one, I'm always in the top 3 to 5 off the start. In fact, I don't think I've ever got a start worse than a fifth on a CR, and I've whole shot a lot of motos. That's enough rambling. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and God bless America. And God bless all the motocross and motorcycle riders worldwide, all you guys out there. Thanks for being there.